The sea was unnaturally calm. No wind, no waves, not even a single gull circling above. Just the slow creak of an old wooden boat swaying gently in the open water. Inside it sat Thomas Hale, 63 years old, sunburnt, silent, and stubborn. He had fished these waters for over 40 years. Knew their moods, their monsters, and their lies. But nothing had ever felt quite like this. He cast his net out like always, with muscle memory, not thought. The ocean accepted it without a splash. Minutes passed. Nothing. Then, a pull. Hard. Sudden. Wrong. Thomas braced his legs and gripped the rope. Whatever was in that net, it wasn't thrashing like a fish. It wasn't heavy like a shark. It was moving. Deliberately. Climbing, almost. "Come on, you bastard," he muttered, gritting his teeth. He hauled it up, hand over hand, until the net broke the surface, sloshing with salt water and seaweed. And something else. It was about the size of a child. Pale skin. Slick. Thin arms. No scales. And eyes, wide, black, wet, staring straight at him. It blinked. Thomas stumbled back, nearly tipping the boat. What the hell? Then it screamed. Not loud, but sharp, high, and human. And far too late, Thomas realized. It was still alive. Thomas stared at the thing curled in the net like it didn't belong in this world. It coughed. Not a fishy gasp, but a wet, struggling sound that echoed something painfully human. His heart hammered. He grabbed the oar, not to row, but to defend himself. The creature didn't move. It just watched him. Its skin glistened with salt water, and veins pulsed faintly beneath the surface like light inside a jellyfish. There were no gills, no fins, no shell, just slick flesh, trembling and cold. It looked scared. "Jesus Christ," Thomas whispered, stepping closer. "What are you?" The creature flinched, not from his voice, but from something else. A sound. Low. Distant. Mechanical. Thomas turned his head and squinted across the water. A chopper, small, fast, was cutting through the morning sky, headed right for him. His radio crackled for the first time in weeks. "Unidentified vessel. This is Coast Guard surveillance. Stay where you are. Do not move. Repeat, do not move." Thomas froze. Then he looked down. The creature was trying to speak, mouth opening and closing, but no words came out. Just a whimper. A plea. The net around it shifted. Melted. The ropes began to fall apart, not cut, but disintegrating in some kind of chemical rot, as if the thing had started rejecting its prison. Then the creature locked eyes with him and finally spoke, a sound that wasn't sound at all. It vibrated in his mind. "They're coming. Not for you, for me." And then it slid off the boat. Back into the sea. The sun hadn't risen yet, but the sky was beginning to bruise with color, that deep purple-gray right before dawn stretches its fingers across the sea. Thomas Hale sat stiffly in his boat, trying to slow his breathing. He was no stranger to strange things in the ocean. He'd seen storms come out of nowhere, fish with translucent skin, and once, a dead whale, bloated and still, covered in bites too large to identify. But this? This was different. This was alive. And it was watching him. The creature lay tangled in the net, barely moving now. It wasn't thrashing like a caught animal. It was, listening. Studying him. And the sea was silent. Even the gentle rhythm of the waves had vanished, replaced by a thick stillness, as though the ocean itself was holding its breath. Thomas couldn't move. Not because he was frozen in fear, but because the eyes held him. They weren't fish eyes, not dull, not dumb. These were dark, round, with a thin glowing ring inside, like a moon captured in a puddle of oil. They blinked slowly, deliberately. It was the blink that terrified him most. It meant understanding. It meant intent. He reached toward the net with shaking hands, and the thing flinched, not violently, but enough to show awareness. It knew it was caught. And it knew who caught it. In the growing light, Thomas got his first real look at it. The body was thin, fragile-looking, but not frail. Smooth skin shimmered like wet silver, but closer to pearl than fish scale. No fins. No shell. Its chest rose and fell, slowly, like it was adjusting to breathing air. There were slits along its neck, gills, maybe, but they moved like lungs. Fluid. Natural. Human. Its hands, because that's what they were, had long, webbed fingers. 6 on each. Nails soft and translucent. It looked like something pulled from a dream, or a nightmare someone forgot to finish. Thomas finally whispered, "What are you?" The creature didn't answer. But something echoed. Not through the air, through him. A low, subtle pressure behind his eyes. Not pain, not words, but intention. A feeling pressing against his thoughts. "Return me." The voice wasn't loud. It was like remembering something that had never happened. Like a whisper in a dream that followed him into the real world. Thomas stumbled back, heart hammering. His breath came fast now, not from fear of the thing, but from the terrifying realization. It was talking. To him. A rumble. Far away at first. Then louder. Thomas turned his head skyward, squinting through the fog rising off the ocean. There, black blades slicing through the dawn. A helicopter. Small. Fast. Military green. No markings. It wasn't Coast Guard. The radio on his console crackled, for the first time in weeks. Unidentified vessel. This is federal surveillance. Stay in place. Do not move. Repeat, do not move. Thomas's fingers tightened on the wheel. They were coming. Not for him, for it. He looked down. The creature was looking at him again, not afraid now, but pleading. The ropes around the creature had changed. They were wet, yes, but something was eating them from within. The knots were unraveling. The fibers fell apart like cotton soaked in acid. Not cut. Not pulled. Dissolving. Thomas reached for his knife, more instinct than intention, but the creature let out a soft, rhythmic hum. A vibration through the wood of the boat. Not angry. Not violent. Just sad. "They're coming," the voice echoed again, clearer this time. "Not for you. For me." Thomas swallowed hard. "Why? What are you?" "Prisoner." And then, it moved. With one final look, the creature rolled toward the edge of the boat and slid silently into the sea. No splash. No thrash. Just a ripple. Thomas lunged forward, maybe to stop it, maybe to follow it, but it was already gone. The water was flat again. Mirror-like. As if it had never been there. And then, from below, he saw them. Dozens, no, hundreds, of shadows, far beneath the boat. Shapes circling. Watching. He didn't recognize them. But they recognized him. Back on shore, Thomas noticed something strange. On the palm of his hand, the one that had touched the net, was a faint imprint. A pattern. Spirals. Lines. A symbol burned into his skin, though there was no pain. His phone buzzed. No signal. His radio hissed. Then went dead. In the distance, the helicopter circled once, then veered away, like it had seen enough. And Thomas stood alone at the dock, palm glowing faintly in the pre-dawn light, already knowing. Nothing would ever be the same. The dock was swarming with uniforms. 2 hours after Thomas limped his boat back to shore, government agents, not Coast Guard, not local police, had already seized it. Men in suits. No names. No explanations. They took his net, his gear, even the splinters of rope left from where the creature had vanished. Thomas asked questions. They answered with silence. But they didn't know one thing. Thomas still had the radio. Still had the recording. When the thing had screamed, his boat's recorder had caught everything. The sound. The voice. The message. He hadn't meant to share it. He didn't trust anyone. But something about that voice still echoed in his skull. He couldn't sleep. Couldn't think. So he emailed the clip to an old friend, Liz Carter, a journalist with a reputation for chasing stories no one else would touch. She posted it. The next morning, the world changed. The dock groaned under Thomas's boots as he stepped off the boat. His hands were shaking, though he didn't notice it right away. They trembled from something deeper than exhaustion, like the body knew what the mind hadn't processed yet. That he had seen something not meant for human eyes. The sky above was a dull gray, and the town was just beginning to stir. Harbor Point was always quiet in the morning. Quiet enough to pretend things were still normal. But nothing was normal anymore. Thomas looked back at the sea. The water lay flat and mirror-like, showing nothing of what had happened. No ripples. No blood. No proof. Just memory, and something else, tucked deep inside his coat pocket. A black recording device. Still blinking red. Thomas sat alone in his living room, the salt still clinging to his jacket. He placed the device on the table like it might explode. He stared at it for 10 full minutes before finally pressing play. Static. Then a soft creak, the sound of his boat. Then, breathing. Not his. Something wet, trembling. Then it came. A scream. But not a scream of fear. It was communication, compressed into a single sharp burst, like the sound of sonar twisted into a voice. Alien. Intelligent. And most disturbing of all, it resonated with something in him. His hands went cold. His eyes filled with tears, not of fear, but of something more instinctive. Something ancient. That was the moment Thomas understood. This wasn't just something new. It was something old. And it wasn't gone. He hadn't spoken to Liz Carter in years. She was a journalist once, back when that meant something. Now she ran a blog called The Undercurrent, Conspiracy Theories, Deep Sea Mysteries, Government Blackouts. Most people called her crazy. But Liz listened. She always had. Thomas uploaded the audio file and wrote one line in the email. "You were right. It's not a myth." He didn't expect her to respond. She did, within 20 minutes. "Call me. Now." They talked for hours. She asked the right questions. Didn't mock him. Didn't flinch. Then she asked the most important one. "Can I publish this?" Thomas hesitated. He looked out the window. The sea was still. The sky above it looked too perfect. "Yeah," he said finally. "The world should know." It started small, a short post on her site with the audio clip embedded. Then Reddit picked it up. Then TikTok. Then YouTube. Then Twitter. Within 6 hours, the headline "Fisherman Captures Deep Sea Alien Scream" was everywhere. Newscasters debated it. Podcasters analyzed the frequency patterns. Sound engineers slowed the scream down and played it backwards. Some thought it was a hoax. Some thought it was proof of life. Others heard messages. Phrases. One woman claimed she heard her dead daughter's voice inside the clip. It spread like fire. And Thomas watched it all from the silence of his kitchen, cup of coffee cooling in his hand, while the world reacted to something that was still out there. They came that night. Not police. Not military. Something in between. Black SUVs. No plates. Men in gray suits with calm, neutral faces. One of them said he was from Coastal Environmental Protection. Another said Geological Survey. But none of them ever showed a badge. They took everything: the net, the boat, his phone, his camera, his logbooks. They left no forms. No copies. No questions. They never once mentioned the creature. But one of them looked at Thomas just a second too long, as if to say, "You shouldn't have done that." And then they were gone. The next morning, Liz's site went offline. Completely. Not hacked, erased. Archives. Posts. Backups. Even her domain history, gone. Thomas called. No answer. He texted. The message never delivered. He tried a burner phone she gave him years ago. Disconnected. Then he saw the news. Journalist Elizabeth Carter reported missing. No foul play suspected. Thomas's stomach turned. No signs of forced entry. No DNA evidence. No camera footage. Her apartment was untouched, almost too untouched. Her laptop sat on her desk, fried. The metal warped, like it had been microwaved from the inside out. Just like that, she was gone. For the next 3 days, Thomas didn't sleep. Every knock on the door made his heart race. Every noise outside made him check the locks, twice. The town was still quiet, but different now. People eyed him longer. Conversations stopped when he walked into shops. They knew. Not what happened, but that something had. And still, beneath it all, he felt it. The creature hadn't come to hurt him. It had come to warn him. And maybe it wasn't alone. The video exploded. Fisherman records alien sea creature. Government hiding deep sea discovery. Is humanity alone? New evidence says no. Within hours, the footage hit 20 million views. Scientists, conspiracy theorists, news anchors, teenagers, everyone wanted a piece of the mystery. Thomas's name was everywhere. So was the sound, that haunting, high-pitched, almost human scream. But the fame wasn't comforting. His windows shattered the next night, rocks thrown by strangers in black masks. His phone never stopped ringing. Helicopters hovered over his house. Drones. Reporters. Freaks. And Liz? She disappeared. Her apartment, empty. No signs of struggle. No forced entry. Just her laptop, fried from the inside out, like it had been hit with a microwave bomb. Thomas knew now. Whatever he pulled out of the ocean wasn't supposed to be seen. And it wasn't gone. It was waiting. Within hours, the scream had been remixed into dubstep. TikTok teens made dances to it. Gamers used it as a sound effect for alien boss fights. Conspiracy YouTubers declared it the new Roswell. But somewhere between the jokes and speculation, people began to listen closer. Too close. A blind woman claimed it made her see flashes of light in her dreams. A retired diver had a panic attack while listening, said he saw eyes behind his eyelids. A neuroscientist ran the sound through a spectrogram and nearly quit her job. There's a pattern, she said in a now-deleted interview. It's not a voice. It's an instruction. Thomas stopped checking the news. He tried turning off his phone, but the calls still came. Burners. Unknown numbers. People breathing into the line, then hanging up. Reporters camped across the street, peeking from rental cars with telephoto lenses. Some knocked. Others just stared. Someone followed him home from the grocery store. Someone broke into his truck and left nothing but a single shell, smooth, wet, and warm to the touch. By evening, mainstream media was forced to acknowledge it. CNN ran a headline. Unidentified audio signal, viral hoax or real anomaly? The U.S. Navy denied involvement. NASA declined to comment. The Pentagon issued a vague statement about ongoing analysis of maritime acoustic activity. But beneath the surface, something changed. Satellite feeds began to scramble more often. Military flights increased along the Pacific coast. Private weather stations reported oceanic disturbances, and then went offline. The leak had gone too far. Thomas kept checking her blog, refreshing the page like a ritual. Then came the white screen. This domain is no longer active. No warning. No redirect. He called her backup number. No answer. Straight to voicemail. He drove to her apartment 3 hours away. The door was ajar. Inside, silent. Lights on. Dishes in the sink. Coffee cup half full. Laptop open, screen melted into a blue-white burn. No sign of struggle. No blood. Just absence. On the wall above her desk, a sticky note, scribbled with a single line. We are not the top of the chain. Some people mocked the panic. Others bought guns. One church declared the scream was the voice of Leviathan, returned to punish humanity for its sins. Another group began chanting the frequency during full moons. Coastal cities saw spikes in disappearances. Inland towns reported strange weather smells. Several marine biologists went missing at sea. The world hadn't ended. But it had begun to lean. Just slightly. Like the earth had tilted a few degrees toward something waiting in the deep. On the fourth night, Thomas found another file on his recorder. He hadn't touched it. The timestamp, 3:07 a.m. Duration, 33 seconds. He played it. No scream this time. Just breathing. Then, a whisper. Not in words, but in rhythm. Not spoken, but inside him. It sees what you see. He looked out his window. Across the water, far in the mist, was a light. Small. Pulsing. Watching. At 2:47 a.m., a siren blared along the eastern coastline. The ocean near Harbor Point turned black, ink pouring up from the deep. Then, silence. Then, screaming. Witnesses reported something rising from the water, not a creature, but a hole. A spiral of light and shadow, pulsing like a wound in the sky. Boats went dark. Ships vanished off radar. Coastal towns lost power. And from that breach, things began to crawl out. Not large. Not aggressive. But fast. Pale. Watching. Thomas saw one on his porch, just standing there, dripping, blinking. Same eyes. It whispered one word before dissolving into a puddle. Soon. It started at 2:47 a.m. A single siren, low and deep, rolled across the coastline like thunder trapped in a bottle. No explanation. No alert. Just sound. Long, sustained, vibrating. Thomas bolted upright in bed, heart pounding. He knew, immediately, it wasn't man-made. It had weight. Like it had risen from beneath the earth itself. The siren faded. Then the silence returned, but not the usual kind. A hollow silence. The kind you only hear underwater. By 3:10 a.m., the Harbor Point Marina had lost all power. Streetlights blinked out. Generators failed. Boats, even docked ones, began to drift. Not from waves. The water was still. Glass still. But the boats moved. Gently. Uniformly. As if something beneath them was breathing in. One fisherman later said he saw a ripple with no wind, a circular pulse that spread across the surface, like a stone dropped in a pond too far away to see. And then, something rose. From the center of the bay, about 700 yards offshore, a spiral of shadow appeared. It wasn't a creature. It wasn't a ship. It was a hole. A vortex. A dark bloom of something thicker than water, spreading from the ocean floor like ink spilled in slow motion. Lights flickered. Cameras died. Phones began recording themselves. Live streams filled with static. And then, for a full 8 seconds, every person standing within view of the bay heard the same word. Not in their ears. Observe. It echoed in the bones. 5.4 The visitors. From the breach, shapes began to emerge. At first they looked like animals, pale, fluid-limbed figures gliding just beneath the surface. But they didn't move like animals. They moved with intention. Some rose fully from the water, glistening, fragile-looking creatures that blinked like infants and tilted their heads at the sky. Others remained submerged, but visible, like watching a school of translucent shadows dance under ice. They didn't attack. They didn't speak. They watched. And everywhere they stood, the ground became damp. Not with water. With condensation, as if their presence cooled the air around them to freezing. At 3:38 a.m., the town snapped. First it was someone screaming. Then glass shattering. Then sirens. Dozens of people ran from their homes, others barricaded themselves in. The spiral pulsed again, once, and everyone in a 2-mile radius had a nosebleed at the same time. Hospitals filled. One ER doctor went catatonic after staring at a patient's CT scan. All the veins in the image had twisted into spirals. The same pattern Thomas had seen in his palm. Thomas didn't run. He stood on the pier, coat wrapped tight, face cold from mist, eyes locked on the light now glowing at the breach's center. Something inside it was growing. Not in size, in presence. A pressure behind the eyes. A hum in the jawbone. The kind of sensation that made you forget your name for a second. Then he saw it. One of the creatures, small, thin, soaked, standing on his dock. Not swimming. Not floating. Standing. Its eyes met his. It blinked. Then whispered, in a voice that bypassed language. Soon. By dawn, military ships had surrounded the area. Submarines went silent. Drones vanished from radar. News crews were pushed back. Official statements called it a rare oceanic event. They blamed underwater volcanic gas, electromagnetic anomalies, even a hoax coordinated by foreign interference. But the footage leaked. Someone on a rooftop captured the spiral. Another filmed the creatures near the docks. A third recorded the word "observe" whispering through the fog. The videos were banned. Taken down. But not before they were downloaded, reposted, archived. It was too late. The world had seen. When the breach finally closed, if it ever truly did, some things were simply gone. 14 boats. 8 people. An entire research buoy station. 2 miles of ocean floor, missing from sonar. Liz Carter's name, removed from every digital archive. But one thing remained. Thomas's hand. Still marked. Still glowing. And now, warm. Desperate, hunted, and exhausted, Thomas made a choice. He needed to go back. Not to fight, to ask. He took the same boat. Same spot. Same hour. Alone. When he dropped anchor, the water didn't move. Until it did. A single glowing figure rose from below, not the same creature, but similar. Older. A presence. It didn't speak. It just looked at him. Then it pointed downward. Thomas understood. He tied a rope to himself, strapped on a dive light, and slid into the dark. What he saw beneath the surface wasn't a trench. It was a structure. Massive. Ancient. Alien. Breathing. Inside, thousands of the creatures, asleep. Preserved in orbs of light. Waiting. And at the center, a pulse. Like a heart. Like a countdown. Thomas hadn't planned to return. He'd told himself he was done. That he'd played his part, leaked the truth, faced the unknown. But truth wasn't enough. Not anymore. Every night, the dreams returned. Spirals. Tunnels, lights blinking like eyes. And beneath it all, the hum. Not music. Not mechanical. Something living. Each time he woke, his hand was glowing faintly. Warmer. Brighter. He stopped checking his pulse. He already knew, it was synced to something else now. Then one night, he whispered to the sea. "I'm ready." The next morning, the fog parted, and the light was waiting offshore. He packed only what he needed. His father's old wetsuit, still holding up after 20 years. A waterproof recorder. An LED dive light. A line to tie himself to the boat. No weapons. No fear. He didn't tell anyone. The marina was empty, curiously so. He wasn't sure if it was instinct, interference, or something more deliberate. When he pushed off from the dock, the water didn't resist him. It welcomed him. The breach was no longer visible, but he knew where to go. The GPS didn't work, but his skin pulsed like a compass. He followed the warmth in his palm. About 300 meters from shore, the water grew darker, black, not from depth, but from something suspended just below the surface. The boat slowed on its own. The rope trembled in his hand. He turned on the light, clipped the recorder to his chest, checked the straps, and slipped into the sea. At first, silence. Then, whispers. Not words. Not voices. Textures of thought. Memory fragments not his own. The water here wasn't cold. It was neutral, like air given weight. The deeper he went, the less his eyes mattered. Colors blurred. Light bent. And then, something glowed beneath him. He reached it at about 40 meters. The water opened into a vast dome, an undersea canyon unlike any mapped structure. At its heart, a monolithic shape. Black. Still. Pulsing. Alive. The object stood nearly 60 feet tall, with no clear entrance, but lines spiraled across its surface like veins. As Thomas floated closer, the glow in his hand intensified, and so did the pull. Not physical. Cognitive. Emotional. Spiritual. The structure responded. Parts of its surface shifted, not opening, but acknowledging. He reached out. His fingers brushed the material, and felt memory. A storm. A scream. Silence. Not his memories. The oceans. It had always remembered him. Around the monolith, smaller pods glimmered like jellyfish, suspended in fluid. Inside each one, figures. Similar to the creature from the boat, but not the same. Older. Bigger. More complex. Asleep. Preserved. Thousands. And in that moment, he understood. They weren't an invasion. They were a colony. A species hiding in the last place no one could survive. Until now the monolith pulsed again. Stronger. The hum grew deeper, shaping into a signal. And suddenly, Thomas heard words. Not a voice. A download. You woke us. We remember you. You are not the first. You broke the rhythm. The silence. And now, we cannot return to sleep. Thomas floated, weightless in the dark, his breath echoing in his ears. Tears mixed with the salt. What do you want from me? He whispered. There was no answer. Only a new signal, a vision. The ocean vanished. Replaced by a black field. Stars overhead. He was no longer Thomas Hale, he was something else, seeing through time. He saw cities crumble beneath waves, not from wrath, from design. He saw another species, not human, kneeling in worship before the monolith. He saw himself, glowing at the center of a spiral, surrounded by the creatures. Not as a prisoner. Not as prey. As a conduit. He was the breach. When he woke, he was back in the boat. He didn't remember swimming up. Didn't remember untying the rope. But the recorder was still on. And it had captured nothing but his own heartbeat, and the hum of the deep. He looked at his hand. The glow was gone. But the mark had changed. The spiral had opened. And now, at its center, was an eye. Back on the surface, satellites began to pick up a signal from deep in the Pacific. Mathematical. Rhythmic. Increasing. Governments responded, lockdowns, blackouts, naval mobilizations. But it wasn't a threat. It was a call. A warning. We were here before you. We slept while you built your world. Now you are too loud. Thomas broadcast the message publicly. It aired for less than 2 minutes before being taken down. But it was too late. Something was coming. Something old. And it wanted silence. The final day came with no explosions, no fire, no war. Just rising water. Not a flood. A shift. The sea moved inward, swallowing coastlines not with rage, but with precision, like a surgeon reclaiming lost territory. As cities fell silent, the sky changed. No clouds. Just blue. Perfect, unnatural blue. And in the center of the Pacific, something rose. A spire. Smooth, black, humming. Thomas stood at the edge of it, the only human allowed to see. The voice returned one last time, echoing gently inside him. This is not your end. It is your return. We always come back for what is ours. He closed his eyes. And the ocean opened. No one ever found Thomas Hale again. But they found his boat, washed ashore on an empty beach, untouched by salt, looking brand new. Inside, a journal. Pages soaked in seawater, words half faded. But one line remained, scratched into the wood. They live below. They dream in silence. And now, we dream with them.